Welcome to the gathering here today, guys. It's so good to see roughly around 44 members joining in from across the globe for this very amazing session. I request all of you guys to turn on your videos so that the speaker here has an interactive session and we all have fun together. My name is Toastmaster Shri, and I have been part of the Sobo Toastmasters Club for past 1.5 years. Ralph C. Smedley in March 24, 1905, understood that there is a problem with guys raising toasts. He realized that there's some problem with public speaking. And that's when he took up the mission to create an event, a movement called Toastmasters. Since then, Toastmasters have managed to reach 154 countries and have amazing outreach programs. Something similar within Sober Toastmasters, we have created 4 sessions, which is evaluation, table topics, T-Mod, and Tag L. Now, in order to do that, how are we going to do it? The project name is Project University Pushpagiri. University Pushpagiri used to be a university back in ancient India, which used to be the oasis of knowledge. Something similar, Sobo has decided to do. People would come from across the globe, enter this university, and become better people. With Sobo's analogy, we become better public speaking individuals. Since we have understood that there's a dearth of understanding the nuances of the Toastmasters meeting, we have realized that these sessions are going to be useful to new members as well as the old members. In order to fulfill this mission, Sobo has came up with an educational session series, of which we would be conducting the first session on evaluation and feedback. After the presentation, we would have question answers session. All participants are requested to send their questions in main chat box. We shall address them in the end. And today, to share his experience on evaluation and feedback, we have someone who has worked with various multinationals as a finance professional for more than 30 years. He has also been a Toastmaster for 20 years. He's the founder of Bora Toastmasters Club and has conducted various speechcraft programs for adult professionals and youth leadership programs for teenagers. He believes in continuously learning and upgrading himself and finding interesting things to learn all the time. We are proud to have distinguished Toastmaster Shaukat Lokhandwala in Sobo. With a huge round of applause, welcome distinguished Toastmaster Shaukat Lokhandwala.
All right. Thank you so much, Toastmaster Shri. Can everyone see my presentation? There's a little bit of thumbs up. Am I audible and visible? Yes. Okay, great. Evaluation is something that we all need to understand. And a lot of people have come across and said, especially new members, what do we do? How are we going to evaluate? Do I know enough to ask? Can I say, how do I say it? And if I tell them something, will they feel bad? This is a general concept which we have. And a lot of us also do that. And also we want to get a little better. So today, I'm going to be having this opportunity to share my thoughts as to how we can better evaluate, ACE evaluation perhaps, and definitely do a better job. So going ahead. Yeah. So what's on today is how I'm going to share my thoughts are basically on 2 levels. One is the why part of why is the evaluation, and then we'll go on and take a deeper dive into the how part. How exactly should we be doing it, in my opinion? So why is evaluation is what distinguishes the Toastmasters program from any other. We are here to help each other, to gain knowledge, to become better. And that can only happen if we know where we've done well and what we can do better. So therefore, it is definitely essential part, and one of the pillars of our Toastmasters movement. The way we do it is by giving a critical appreciation. The two specific words are, we are critical, but we also appreciate. And by giving this duality, we are able to share our thoughts and make people better. Typically, evaluation is presented by a person who is better than or done that, been there, seen that, and therefore can share his or her experience and make us better by telling us what is to be done. So the general consensus which we know is that only the speaker gets the benefit of the evaluation. Am I right? Well, to my mind, no. And why is that? Is because as an evaluator, we are doing a mini speech and therefore we get to be better. The speaker definitely would benefit because they know what is to be done. And the whole audience itself, by learning, by seeing what can be done, they can imbibe all that stuff into their own evaluations as time goes forward. So in effect, an evaluation is typically a win-win situation. All right, now enough of all this stuff at the back, why, what, all that we know. 2-3 people have started yawning already. So I'm going to go straight in and say how to evaluate, because that's what we're all here for, yeah? So let's go into this past. Before the speech. Now, what is this? Evaluation is all after the speech. Why is this guy coming up and saying something you have to do before the speech? Ridiculous. But wait. First of all, as an evaluator, what you're supposed to do is given to us, because you can always get the project details and, most importantly, the speech objectives. So you know what you're going to be talking about. You know what you're going to be evaluating. You have the evaluator sheet, again, within the Toastmasters manual for the specific project. In fact, Toastmasters has done everything. They're given to you what you need to do on a platter. You just have to read it, follow the program, and you're good. You can, if the speaker has already given some speeches before, you can always request him or her for the evaluator comments which have been made in their previous speeches. This would help you get an understanding of what the speaker is, how the speaker presents, and what the speaker can do better. And that gives you a better start of the whole of your evaluation. We will make a checklist of points for which I will come to a little later. And now you're almost getting ready, so you can observe the body language of the speaker before this part, when the speaker's either coming on stage, or if it's a virtual background, see how the person looks, comfortable, presentable, smiling, etc. Now, the evaluation itself is this is the way which I do it. Now, it's not necessarily the only way. There are many ways to do it, but this is how I do it. I found it to be effective, and so I'm sharing that with you. So this is actually a A4 size page, a typical page we take, blank page, and I make these lines on it. The first part on top, I write the speech title, I'll write this project details, etc. on top of that. The second part I'll put out here, which is the done well, the things the speaker has done well. The third part out here is can do better. Now, I have chosen these words, can do better. We could have said what he didn't do well, done well, not done well. But I prefer to look at it in a positive angle. And therefore, I always say, can do better. And finally, on the right-hand side, I make a list, a checklist which I have there, which we'll get to in a moment. So once I have this sheet in front of me, I'm set when I go in front of the evaluator. Now, what is the checklist that we're going to look at? Basically, again, we come down to what is it that I'm going to speak about? What is that I'm going to look for? So we just note down these points. And this checklist which I have, it is not a complete checklist in as much you can always add more. But the first thing which I do in that is I write the speech objectives on the side. because that's the crux of an evaluation, to see the person doing a proper speech. Each speech has something different. It could be on body language. It could be on improving your speech. It could be on mentorship. And each of them, Toastmasters said, there are specific things which the evaluator should look for, should speak on, should comment on. So the speech objective is the first thing which I write out here. Then there are other things which I will look at. Opening, body, conclusion, all this we know. Was it a good start? Did they have a message at the end? Did the body flow properly? Did it have a theme? Did we speak? Did the speaker have something which interested the audience? If I'm going to have a bunch of scientists out there and I'm going to start talking about debit, credit, of accounting, I'll get the audience sleeping in no time. So there needs to be audience interest. Then there's a participation. You're asking questions. How many people want to listen to this story? Have you ever done this before? People look, see. So the audience participation is important. Humor is always good to have. We like to hear that. Did the speech title, is appropriate? Did the person use notes? Any specific words which they use, sentences that they use, idioms, quotes, etc. And then there's a whole bunch of other things. You have the vocal variety. And that is very important because you want to know whether he spoke loudly or he made it soft. Did he speak so fast, or did you understand what he's talking? Did he put emotion or appropriate pauses? Gestures. Did the hand movement go? Not like this, but did it go appropriately? So your eye contact, your timer usage, was there a message at the end, or were there too many messages? Did the person research? Did he look and say, 85% of the people who are listening to this are really listening. The rest of the 15% are trying to listen. This is not my research, this is my hope. And the hope that the 85% is more than 85%. But yeah, so you can get what I mean. I list down all these points on this side, and they're not exhaustive. For instance, I could say, was there a personal story in this? Did they have any quotes which were used? So you can add different aspects of it as you feel fit and appropriate for the person, for the speech, so that you can make your listing on the side itself. Now, there's a reason why I say this, and I'll come to that. So we are now going finally into the speech. And what happens during the speech? We listen. And we listen carefully. And there's a reason why we know that God has given us 2 ears and only one mouth or one tongue. Because the more we listen, the better we are. Make small notes. What I've seen and what I experienced is, when I start writing anything on my sheet, I miss out the words spoken by the speaker, because I can only focus on one thing at a time properly. And I'm sure you all would have seen the same. So keep your mind fresh, keep your mind always looking at the speaker, trying to imbibe what the person is saying. That's why I have the checklist. You can, if the person has given humor, the speaker has given some humor, tick that humor. Gestures, tick it. No, if you looked at notes, tick that part. Speech objectives, tick that area. Cross out certain things if the person has not done, or which you think as commendation. That takes a split second. You don't need to write down anything. If you do need to write down something, write in small letters, small words, small sentences, or 2-3 words, so that your focus remains on the speaker. It's very important, and very often I've seen we have done that. And when I started, I used to start thinking about my evaluation even as the speaker was presenting. As a result, I was not listening to the speaker, or rather, I was hearing the speaker but not listening to the speaker. And therefore, I might have missed out certain essential points of what I could have come across later. This checklist which is there is very important for me to keep my sanity to keep my focus on the speaker. And when I do this, I come out at the end with a whole list of stuff which I can speak. So I also tend to, I don't take this prepared. When I'm sitting, I start writing down those points just before the speaker comes. And I do that simply because when you write it down at that point of time, you remember in your mind. You're already in the zone. You're already in the evaluation mode. And therefore, it helps me. Of course, I would suggest don't write your evaluation speech while the speech is on. Just do your checklists and make small notes. So how do we actually go with the structure now? What a lovely, lovely sandwich we can see out here. And that's how I want my speech to be, or my evaluation to be, a beautiful sandwich. And how do we do the sandwich? The basic sandwich method as it's used. You start off by highlighting the strengths, which are all the tasty parts of it. You speak your areas of improvement, which is the salad, very good for health, but not necessarily as tasty. And finally, you summarize it, quote it beautifully, and present it so that everyone can find it palatable, edible, extremely tasty. And only if things are tasty will they imbibe it and go forward with it. How do you actually go about now with the evaluation? The speaker's done, gone, and you're left with your paper, your tick marks, your notes. So typically you break it up into two bits, is the speech content and the speech delivery, because it's the what and the how. When you look at the content and you look at all the points out there, you'll see whether the opening body conclusion was good. Was there a message? Did the speech objective, are the speech objectives fulfilled? Did it flow? Did it come in a coherent manner? Did it approach you clearly? Did you understand it? And the delivery is about the gestures, the eye contact, the whole body language. There's so many verbal and non-verbal cues that you will take into this. And that's why you have the checklist, and that's what you keep looking for. And that gives you so much material, so much masala, as we say, to get into it and to write your points. Do use the checklist points, very important. Identify your speech objectives, and that's the first thing which you do to know whether a person has done properly, done what they're supposed to do. Sometimes we just get along and say, I'm going to give a speech. And they come and give a speech without realizing that there are certain objectives. It's not just a speech. Toastmasters builds us up, makes us better each stage, and therefore it tells you different things to be done. And that's what we're going to evaluate. There are always a few major points. Tend to use 3 to 4. You use 5, 6 major points. You have forgot, the audience has forgotten the first 2 points by the time you reach there. And also your areas of improvement. If you got 3 or 4 points of good commendations, I would suggest you use 2 points of improvement, or maximum 3. Don't go on making a thesis on the areas of improvement, because nobody likes that. You now come across on the evaluation itself. You are going on stage. Try to keep it simple. Very often people come and they start giving quotes, or they start giving, they don't realize that it's the speaker. Basically, it's a time for you to share about the speaker. The speaker has to be in the spotlight, in the limelight. And we out here at the back, sometimes we start off and saying, wow, what a great speech. If supposing the speech was about their favorite trip, it resonates with the trip which I had when I was a small child, and I went on a train and I saw this and I saw that. Guys, it's not about you. It's not about the evaluator. It's about the speaker. So do speak about the content, because that shows you listened. But not only of the content, or not only about yourself. Share about your commendations and your recommendations. For you, it is a mini speech as an evaluator. So make sure that you have your appropriate eye contact. One of the things which I notice is now we are going more virtual. So there's also a certain amount of Zoom etiquette that we should know. And that's something which you could use in your recommendations or your commendations, is how you're speaking right now. For instance, if you see me and you can see I'm trying to frame myself within this virtual background that I have. So you can still see me, you can still see my hands, and I try to keep the camera as, on my eye level. If you're looking down on the camera, you're looking on the side, you can see people moving around. You can use that as also areas of improvement. All the evaluation that you make is always going to be your personal views. And therefore, it is essential that we always state that my views, in my opinion, according to me, because it's not necessarily the commendation that I think can be for everybody or are shared by everybody. You might have noticed for some of the more advanced Toastmasters, you might have seen evaluation contests where the same speech is evaluated a different way. For some, there are some points of commendation and recommendation which may not agree with you. So therefore, when you're giving your evaluation, do state that this is my view. And yeah, and we are humans, so that could be only one perspective, one facet of what the whole speech is all about. Two important phrases which you use is critical appreciation. Whenever we are appreciating and we're telling them what they did well. And what they did well, we're seeing critical, what they can do better of what they did well. And the other one is constructive criticism. Because when we say you didn't do this, or you could have done this, we say it in a manner which is constructive, not destructive. Not to put the person down, but to tell the person how the person can improve. Always, and it's always recommended to show with examples what you want to say. Because, for instance, you say a speech title could be better, or you could have put in more emotion. Instead of making bland statements, you would go specific. And if the speech was on the person's icebreaker and he had titled it My Life, you could have said, instead of just making it bland, you could have put it as the believer, the achiever, as a speech title. So people are thinking about what is coming up and they could be more intrigued about it. Or you could say that if a person was speaking about an incident or an accident they had, and they say that I was walking down, I tripped and I fell down and I got hurt on my head. And you can say, I was walking comfortably and suddenly I tripped, fell flat on my face, and I got hurt badly on my hand. So you put in pauses, you put in emotion, you put in all this stuff. So when you show how it is to be done with specific examples, it's more effective. Finally, always, you have to close on a positive note. I have seen in clubs when people have been extremely critical in the tonal variety, in the way they said, what is this you're talking? You didn't even do this, you didn't even do that. I've seen people leave Toastmasters, leave the club, leave Toastmasters simply because they didn't appreciate the way it was coming. They took it too personal rather than being constructive. Just think about it. Is evaluation an art or a science? And why I say this is because a science is something which is more structured. Art is more subjective. We have seen many different ways of evaluation. What I've shared out here is what I find effective for me. Hopefully it will be effective for you. If you go you will find, on the internet, you'll find so many other ways in which people find themselves effective. This is my style. Therefore, I think it's very much an art. Use your own style. These are suggestions which I've made, which you could use, which you could do. But always remember, the end result is important. You're there to help the person. Your evaluation should elevate the person. Make the person feel better at the end. Yes, I know what I did good, because everyone wants. I love people talking good about me. I think I hope Shri would have spoken a lot more in the interaction about me, but I think he simply ran out of adjectives and he said, this is all I know about this guy. So always go with a positive note, end with a positive note. And the evaluation will help us understand ourselves better and also help the speaker become a better person. With this, I hand back to Toastmaster Shri.
Thank you so much, DTM Shaukat Lokhandwala. This was a very insightful and impactful indeed of a session. Let's have 2 minutes of silence. In the meanwhile, if we have any questions ready, Zoom Master, can you please share the questions with me? You have 1 minute to go. All right. DTM Shaukat, here's your first question from Toastmaster Karan Shah. Many times when hearing many speeches, you tend to compare it with what you hear from other speakers, even though your own speaker has done well. How does one deal with this?
What we do basically is we are trying to look at the speech objectives. We are trying to put our experience as to what we think has done, the person has done well and has done differently. What could the person do better? So what happens is, even if the person, and every speech, even if a person has done exceedingly well, we try to say how a person can get better, because that's why we're here, to see what we can do better. And the speaker always learns, and that's, if you are coming here with the view that I did this better, I'm sure they will take the recommendations in the right spirit.
Thank you so much. So the next question is from Toastmaster Rushali. How to cover so many checkpoints in 3 minutes? That's a very valid question, Toastmaster Shaukat.
Well, the point is that I want to give a list of stuff which you can look at, Rushali. It's not necessarily that you have to give a mention about all of them. You can tick the ones that you think are essential or would add value in your evaluation. But what happens is, give more points and select less. If I give you a few points and you want to add more, it'll take you more time.
All right. Thank you so much. The next question is from Toastmaster Kalpesh. An evaluator has to be better than the speaker. How to decide that?
Well, very good point, Kalpesh. It's not necessarily that the evaluator is better. Typically, what happens, an evaluator would be a person who's been longer than the speaker in Toastmasters, and therefore has passed that stage and therefore has a little more experience. Each person is different. Just as you would have some evaluators who are very good, some evaluators who are average, some you may not agree with completely. And that's all par for the course. So normally what happens is, the VP Ed tries to give you an evaluator who has been a little more experienced and therefore can share more value to what you've done.
Thank you so much. So the next question is by Toastmaster Hetal. How can we present the most stereotypes recommendations in the most unique way possible?
Toastmaster Hetal, you are not a stereotype. I know, I've heard you speak. You come up with something unique all the time. So it's an interesting question that you asked. And the point is, that's where the individuality of an evaluator comes in. So when an evaluator is also making a mini speech, you can have the same speech given differently by different people, and the same evaluation, same given differently. So when you add it, it's how you say it and what you say. If you select the same standard stuff and you say only on tiny things like speech, on modulation, it's how you say it. For instance, you don't say it with an example. You say you should have had more voice modulation, and you keep it at that. Whereas you come and say, you could have modulated your voice. When you spoke about your accent, you should have put in, I fell down and I got hurt. That's how it will help. So when you do it with examples, then an ordinary evaluation becomes even better.
Thank you so much. So the next question is from Toastmaster Raghu. Is it okay not to give or suggest points for improvements?
I think when we are here to improve, and then if we don't give areas of recommendation, how do we expect the person to improve? We are not here only to come and pamper the person or give buttery nice, keep flowery language and say, you did so well, you did this so beautiful, you did that. Yes, we want to do that. But we also want the person to elevate themselves, to go further up. And that can only happen when you give some recommendations of what you think has gone well. So you need to have a sandwich. The sandwich has some very tasty good parts, also some parts which add more strength to the whole sandwich.
Fair enough. So the next question is from Toastmaster Sharmeen. A lot many people while evaluating say, you should do this or that, which may sound condescending to the speaker. How can we improve on that?
I think Toastmaster Sharmeen, you had a very, very valid point. This is something which I've known, and this is something which I had the benefit of one of our members, DTM Hasnain, who shared his experience on this and told me how to do it. And what he said is that when you're speaking, instead of saying you should do this, you say, if I were to do this speech, I would have done this better. So it's not coming on the person, it is coming on yourself. I would have said like this, I would have proposed to do it like this. And that is always easier for the person to come. Thank you, DTM Hasnain, for sharing your thoughts on this and guiding me on this.
Makes sense. Correct. Absolutely. The next question is from Toastmaster Shantanu. We have seen a lot of evals repeating the speech, and that takes more than a minute of their time. Is that the right approach? Is there a better approach?
To Toastmaster Shantanu, so that the speaker knows that we have heard what we listened to the speech, you do repeat certain part of the speech, or at least you share parts of the speech which you found were good, not necessarily the whole thing. I have seen Toastmasters who come and tend to think as if the evaluation is a listening process for them to verbatim repeat the whole speech. That's not the objective. The objective is to comment on that and to commend as well as to give recommendations on that. So you do use it, but you use it in a manner in which where it is necessary and to the extent you require, not just to repeat or just to show that you memorize what he said. Correct. Or what the speaker said.
Correct. So the next question is from Toastmaster Gaurav. It is a bit technical. How to get the previous remarks of the speaker? Should I reach out to VP-Ed or should I reach out to speaker itself?
Toastmaster Gaurav, good point. You have to ask the speaker. Typically, the speaker will have the list of all the points which are written. And please note, that's one point which I should have added also. At the end of your evaluation, please fill up the evaluation sheet and send it to the speaker. Very often what happens at the end of the evaluation, we say, oh, you have done that evaluation, everyone goes home. But what happens in this case, because the next evaluator does not have the benefit of your experience of what the person did and then can share it. So please, all of us should do it. I'm also a party to this. I tend to forget. I'm very happy giving my evaluation and walk out. So I would suggest that the speaker should definitely follow up with the evaluator. Please send me the written evaluation sheet.
Correct. So the next question is similar and in line with the previous question. It's by Toastmaster Jisha. Should you be speaking to the speaker before the speech? And what kind of conversation you should be having with the speaker?
Yes, you can do that to give an idea of the speaker. Sometimes what happens is a speaker has certain points which they would like the evaluator to look at. For instance, I have been moving around the stage too much. This is what I've been told last 4 or 5 speeches. So please look at this point so that you can see whether I'm making a conscious effort to change that. If the speaker has this sort of thing, then you know what you're looking for. And the speaker and you are both working towards the same common purpose. It's not to ask the speaker, what are you going to speak? Or to ask the person to share their speech. It is just to know, are there any points or specific points the speaker would like you to know about the speech?
Correct. So the next question is from Toastmaster Bhakti. Do you think it's a better idea to have an evaluation template ready and then modify that for the speaker?
Toastmaster Bhakti, what I have suggested is my so-called template, the page which I use and I start writing down, that is my template. But I do have to modify it because each speech has a different objective. And our job is to give and to speak on those objectives. So therefore, depending on the objective, depending on the type of speech, if it's a 20-minute speech, you have different points. If you have a speech on mentoring, it's a different point. On gestures, you may have different points of emphasis that you want to put. So put your points of emphasis towards the top. So you remember those first. And the points which are not so important, but yes, important, little lower.
Correct. So the next question is from Toastmaster Gavin. The idea is, since we are looking at an end result, why is this end result so important?
Okay, Toastmaster Gavin, what is the end result we're looking at? I'm saying, taking a step back, taking a look, overall view, we are here to make the person improve or give suggestions to improve. We want to share that improvement in a manner where the person feels, yes, I can do this, I can come back and I can be a better person. That is the end result. If we don't have that end result in mind, we may become too critical, we may not be objective. And then we are not serving the purpose why we are Toastmasters, which is to improve. And that, to me, we are evaluating to elevate the person.
Right. Perfect. So the next question, there are two questions from two different Toastmasters, but they are something similar. So I'll quote one and then go for the next one. Toastmaster Alifia asks, how do we make an impact when we are competing for a contest like evaluation speech contest?
Toastmaster Alifia, it is a different ball game altogether when you're giving a contest and when you're giving a speech in a club. Because in a club, you don't need to summarize. You can be more specific. You can spend more time on your speech. Typically, we have 3 minutes and a 30-second grace. How I do it normally is give at least 1.5 to 2 minutes on the commendations. That means what the person did well, because all of us like to hear what we done well. And I spend the next 1 minute giving stuff which you person can do better. And finally, using the 30 seconds to sum it up. That's how I would do it and use the time effectively. In an evaluation contest, you're always looking at something different what the person did. You can people start off with using a phrase. People start off using specific different examples or trying to find nuances which are not common. At this point of time, we are just trying to find or to help a person improve, not necessarily show how much we know of evaluation. So today's presentation was basically not for a contest, but just for a club level.
Right. But just to summarize it in one line, what are different percentages or different weightages of different aspects for an evaluation speech for a contest? This is a question by Toastmaster Vicky. Can you give us small percentages of the commentation, the recommendation, and the commentation?
It is very interesting that in an evaluation contest, like you go for an exam and you're given a question paper, yes, but you're not only given the way the marking is going to be done. But Toastmasters tells you that there's a judging evaluation sheet, they're judging. And in that they say your commendations and you should take about 30 to 40 commendations and recommendations, I think are more than 55%. And then the other parts are there, or 70%. I don't recollect the exact numbers, but they're given that. So you focus on those areas. There's also on how you speak, what you say, audience, all those points are given. You just have to see the evaluator sheet or judging sheet in a Toastmasters contest to know what areas you need to focus
on. Right. Toastmaster Kapil Batra, what is the speech is too absurd to evaluate?
Toastmaster Kapil is a great friend of mine. He's a DTM and he always comes up with big googlies. It's luckily he didn't come with the shairi because that's what he's well known for. But this point also is very interesting. And can you repeat it? Because he said something very interesting. He said, how can you evaluate when a person gives a bad speech? That's what he said?
Yes.
Every speech has things of good in it. Every person has things which are good. Nobody is bad only. Nobody is good only. Kapilji, that's what our job is, to find out the good parts of every person. And that not only in evaluation, I think in life too. Would you agree?
Thank you so much. So the next question is from Toastmaster Nishist. His question is how to control repeat of words during the speech. Any specific way?
You mean when he means Toastmaster Initiative? I guess you're saying about in your own evaluation how you can avoid repetition.
Correct.
I think it'll come by practice. The more you give speeches, the more you give table topics, the more you give evaluations, you will realize that because you get feedback where you're repeating the words. Typically, the words which you use are the filler words like, arms, you know, and this when you become more aware that you're using them, you start reducing that usage. So I think that basically comes with practice and by the evaluators telling you, the R counters and grammarians telling you, please avoid using repetitive words.
Correct. So the next question is from Toastmaster Kalyani. A clumsy speech with heavy vocab or organized words with simple vocab. What way is better?
I think in Toastmaster Kalyani, thank you for joining in. It is interesting because if you do this speech, let's take a speech contest. You'll have the same thing. Some people will feel that heavy vocab is better. Others will feel simple words are good. It depends on you. It depends on how the impact of the speech overall is. Is this speech by person trying to give very high words or big words, moving away from the effect of the speech, or is it just embellishing the speech? And that's a personal thing. Evaluation is subjective. It's an art. And therefore, it is as good in the eye of the beholder or in the ears of the listener. It depends on how you take it, how you feel about it, and come across it.
Right. So the next question is from BVS Pratap. Sometimes a speaker is unable to complete speech. How do we evaluate such speeches?
Well, Toastmaster Pratap, he's joining in from Bahrain. Thank you so much. He's a past president of the ICAP Toastmasters, as was Toastmaster Kapil. But Toastmaster Pratap, even if the person has not completed his or her speech, typically what happens is that happens towards the icebreaker when people in the middle of the speech, they forget, or towards the end of the speech, they get nervous and they move around. We are here to help them go forward. And so I would say, don't worry. It happens. Nervousness happens to all of us, but we can move forward. I still like so many points of the speech which you came up with. This part, practice. Do a little more practice and you'll come up with it better. In Toastmasters, in the current way, I'm not too sure that we have a system of saying, repeat the speech or compel the person to repeat the speech. And that's why we typically announce that the person is presenting, not attempting a speech. In our recommendations, we can always state that since you have not been able to fulfill the objectives as perhaps you would have liked, I would recommend that you repeat the speech so that we go better going forward. Trust that works.
So the next question is in lines with one of the previous questions that you answered. Should evaluations be about the speaker or a speech or both of them? Should we take the speaker's name to make it personal? This question is anonymous.
Obviously, I think the person might not want their name also to come, but yes, I personally like to look at it on a personal level because I'm talking about a speech by a particular person. And it's not necessarily other people also will have the same issues or good points as the speaker. So I would typically say that the speaker's name out here. And I totally believe that it is how you say it. And if you say it in a manner where it's constructive, without offending the person, but still putting your words across. And that's what evaluation teaches you. I think the person normally will take it well.
Right. So the next question is from Toastmaster Nipun.
Shri,
Let's say,
I'll take a second here. Shri and Shaukat, this will be the final question for the day. Thank you. Let me go ahead, please.
Fair enough. Let's say we have way too many good points from a speaker and very few points of recommendation. So those recommendations will definitely make into the recommendation part of the evaluation. But those very many points, not all can make it into the evaluation. So how to choose, which one to pick, how to frame that?
Very good point, which was raised by Toastmasters. And I hope that happens with all of us. We always have good things to say. The speaker always does a great job. But I would suggest that you push down to a few points, which you have, because you only have 3.5 minutes. You have to work within that. Time is a constraint. What you can do, and what I tend to do at the back is, once I've finished the evaluation, if I get a chance, I talk to the speaker on a one-to-one basis later and share a lot more of the good points or other points of improvement that I want. But I have to put what I want to say in the 3.5 minutes. Put your best foot forward as an evaluator, put the strongest points you have, put the best recommendations that you can put, and finish in 3.5 minutes.
Just one last question from our very favorite Toastmaster Zulfikar. I hope that's okay, Abbas. So the question is, should you evaluate to the level of the speaker or just one level for all? Basically, he's trying to ask, is it one size fit all? Is that the approach we should go for?
DTM Zulfikar has done the DTM 3 times. He is my personal mentor. He's the one who got me into Toastmasters, and therefore he asks the weirdest questions all the time. There is no one size fits all. Toastmasters Zulfikar, you give different evaluations for different people depending on the level of the person. It is also a very, very valid point, because each speaker is different. Each speaker, even the same level of speech, he or she comes from at a different level. You have to appreciate that. For instance, some of us may come from a vernacular background. Some of us may be coming from where English language is more towards our first language or native language. So therefore, the same level of speech would be given in a different manner. We have to look at the speaker. We have to understand where the speaker's strengths are, where they can improve, but we have to evaluate based on that, on the individual speaker.
Well, thank you so much. I think because of the paucity of time, maybe we have to stop now. But going forward, we have noted all the questions down, and we will personally reach out to everyone who has missed out on their questions being asked by Toastmaster DTM Shaukat Lokhandwala. Moving forward with the agenda, I would like to acknowledge our speaker for the day, Toastmaster DTM Shaukat Lokhandwala, with a certificate of appreciation. If Zoom Master DTM Abbas can highlight that. Please have a good round of applause for DTM Shaukat Lokhandwala for doing this amazing session and imparting this beautiful knowledge and coming into this initiative of Project University Pushpagiri, initiated by Sobo Toastmasters. Thank you so much, DTM Shaukat. So the next certificate, I would like the timer, Toastmaster Sejal, to be highlighted. Is she not in the room? Abbas?
I don't see the screen, but we'll pass on the certificate.
Okay, thank you so much, Toastmaster Sejal, for being a timer. So the next certificate, I would like to call the Zoom Master, DTM Abbas, to be highlighted.
I don't have a certificate, but thank you so much.
You do it for free for us.
Thank you very much.
With that being said, whoever has participated today, since our session was about evaluation and feedback, we at Sobo, we respect your feedback, and I would like the Zoom Master to launch a poll for the feedback from our guests and attendees. If we can do that in 5 minutes. By the time you answer that poll, I would like the Zoom Master to display the social media contacts for Sobo Toastmasters.
Folks, is the poll visible to all of you?
Yes, it did for me. I voted.
We're going to end the poll in 5 seconds.
Thank you so much for voting in these heavy numbers. This is very important to us. As Toastmaster Shaukat Lokhandwala said, that we always learn, we evaluate to elevate, and this is the token of appreciation from you guys to us for Soboites to learn. With that being said, DTM Abbas, the
Yeah.
social media contacts. Thank you so much, guys. This is where you all can find us if you are interested in learning from DTM Shaukat Lokhandwala a lot more than that. I hope you guys have had an amazing evening today. I hope this was a great learning experience to you guys. And the idea of Project University Pushpagiri rolls even further. After the success of this session 1, we would be rolling off into session 2, which is going to be conducted by Toastmaster Satish Turani. Please be there to tackle the fear of table topics. 8 p.m. 11th March 2023, right here in the same Zoom meeting. I shall be reaching out to you guys for any further access. Thank you so much for making this evening a wonderful time.